sun is dying, and you feel it before you see it. The grass goes from gold to gray. The heat lifts off your skin. The air turns cooler, wetter, charged with something you can't quite name. Somewhere behind you, a bird stops singing in mid-note. Then another. Then silence, spreading outward like a stain. You can't see the edges of the world anymore. 10 feet ago, you could count blades of grass. Now the horizon has swallowed itself whole, and everything past your own arm's length belongs to something else. Your ears do the work, your eyes can't. Every snap, every shift, every breath of wind through the grass gets weighed, measured, filed under threat or not yet threat. This is 300,000 years ago. This is every evening of your ancestors' lives. And this exact feeling right here is the moment your body was built for. Then the grass moves, not wind. Something with weight. Cut to tonight. Your apartment. Doors locked? Windows locked? Nothing moving but the fridge. And your heart is doing the exact same thing it did on that savannah 300,000 years ago. You check the lock twice, though you already know it's locked. You leave a light on, though you live alone on the 9th floor. You lie there listening to a building settle, cataloging every creak as if a leopard might be behind it. There's no leopard. There hasn't been one in your neighborhood, ever. But your nervous system never got that memo, and it's costing you. Roughly a third of adults report regular sleep disruption tied to nighttime anxiety, and chronic sleep loss is linked to everything from heart disease to depression. So here's the question worth sitting with. If the actual danger disappeared, why didn't the fear? Here's the real mystery. Not why darkness feels dangerous, but why it still does. Humans haven't faced a serious nighttime predator in tens of thousands of years. No saber-tooth is waiting in your hallway. No cave hyena is circling your car in the parking garage. By any reasonable logic, this fear should have faded out generations ago, the way old warnings do when the threat disappears. It didn't. And the reason has almost nothing to do with psychology. What nobody tells you is that your eyes were never built to survive nighttime. They were built for daylight, sharp, colorful, detailed daylight vision. Something else was supposed to handle the dark for you. That something else isn't a tool, it isn't fire. It's older than both. And it means humans were never actually equipped to adapt to the dark at all. You've probably pictured your ancestors as fighters. A caveman gripping a club, standing his ground against a saber-tooth, chest out, unafraid. That image is almost entirely fiction. For most of human evolutionary history, we weren't the ones doing the hunting after dark. We were the ones being hunted. No claws worth mentioning, no natural night vision, no armor, no speed, no reflexes built for low light. Compared to almost every serious nocturnal predator sharing our landscape, early humans were slow, soft, and badly outmatched. Anthropologists Robert Sussman and Donna Hart built an entire case around this in their Man the Hunted thesis, arguing that primates, including our own ancestors, spent far more evolutionary time as prey than as predators. Not occasionally. Consistently. Across millions of years. So the real picture isn't a caveman swinging a club at a saber-tooth under open sky. It's a small group of hominins pressed into the back of a cave, silent, listening, hoping tonight isn't the night something finds them. Here's the part almost no one knows. That fear wasn't weakness. It was the single behavior most likely to keep you alive long enough to have children of your own. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If this vulnerability was so constant, so central to survival, where's the actual proof? Not the theory. The evidence written directly into the bones. There's a skull in South Africa with 2 holes punched clean through the back of it, and for decades nobody could explain them. The skull belonged to a young hominin, discovered in the cave deposits at Swartkrans. The holes weren't random damage from a fall or from other hominins or from scavengers picking through old remains. When paleoanthropologist C.K. Brain examined the puncture marks, he found something specific. Their spacing matched almost exactly the distance between the lower canine teeth of a leopard. Not a rough guess. A match. Brain's taphonomic work, essentially forensic analysis of ancient bones, built a case that leopards weren't just occasional threats to early hominins. They were active, repeat predators, dragging prey up into trees and caves to feed in peace, the same way leopards do with impala carcasses today. Except at this time, the prey wasn't an impala. It was one of our ancestors, and here's the detail that makes it worse. This almost certainly happened at night, or in that narrow, dangerous stretch of dusk when light is disappearing fast. Leopards don't need much light to hunt. Their night vision is somewhere around 6 to 8 times more sensitive than a human's, thanks to a reflective layer behind the retina called the tapetum lucidum, the same structure that makes a cat's eyes glow in headlights. Humans don't have one. We never did. In true darkness, a leopard is operating in a well-lit room. We're operating half-blind, with our other senses working overtime just to compensate. So, picture the mismatch. A predator that sees clearly in near total darkness. A prey species that sees almost nothing. Add teeth, add silence, add a body built to climb straight up into a cave mouth, and you start to understand exactly why that skull ended up with 2 holes in it. Now here's the contrast worth sitting with. Most people alive today have never seen a leopard outside a zoo enclosure, separated by glass, distance, and a gift shop. And yet, put that same person in a dark hallway, alone, and something in them still flinches at the shadows the way their ancestors did with real teeth attached. The predator is gone. The wiring stayed exactly where it was. Which leaves one genuinely strange question hanging in the air. If early humans were this outmatched, this exposed, this huntable, this consistently on the losing end of the food chain, how did a species this vulnerable ever climb its way to the top of it? Your fear of the dark isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Researchers studying vigilance and threat response in early humans have proposed what's sometimes called the Nocturnal Predation hypothesis. Verify exact originating researcher/paper, likely building on Hart and Sussman's prey vulnerability work, possibly cross-referenced with evolutionary psychology research on fear circuitry. The idea that heightened anxiety at dusk wasn't a malfunction at all. It was an early warning system. The hominins who felt uneasy at nightfall, who tensed up at rustling grass, who refused to wander far from the group after sundown. Those were the ones who survived long enough to pass that unease down. Fear, in other words, wasn't the price of survival. It was the mechanism of it. Here's the fact worth repeating to a friend. The part of your brain responsible for that fear, the amygdala, cannot tell the difference between a leopard stalking you in 100,000 BCE and an unexplained creak in your apartment tonight. Same alarm, same flood of chemicals, same instruction to freeze, listen, assess. It's not measuring the actual danger in the room. It's running an ancient script that's never been updated. So how did humans ever push back against the dark at all? Not by getting braver, by getting smarter. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham in Catching Fire argues that controlled fire didn't erase our fear of nighttime. It gave us the first real tool to manage it. Fire pushed back the darkness just far enough to sleep, to gather, to breathe. The fear stayed exactly where it was. Humans just built something to stand between themselves and it, which makes you wonder about every other creature that never needed a fire to begin with. The ones who own the night instead of surviving it. Not every animal is afraid of the dark. That's the part that stings a little. An owl doesn't tense up at dusk. It wakes up. Its eyes are built to gather every scrap of available light. Its flight is silent by design. And nightfall isn't a threat to manage, it's a green light. Hyenas are the same. So are house cats. Technically apex predators of your living room floor, who get more confident, not less, the darker the room gets. Then there's the rabbit, A rabbit at dusk freezes at a shadow, thumps a warning with its back foot, and bolts for the burrow at the first hint that something's wrong. It's not being dramatic. It's being a prey animal, doing exactly what prey animals do when the light starts disappearing. Which brings us back to you checking under the bed before turning off the lamp. Phone flashlight already in hand just in case. Functionally, you're the rabbit. You just upgraded the back foot thump to a flashlight app. That's not an insult. It's biology. Predators get calmer in the dark because darkness works for them. Prey animals get more alert because darkness works against them. And for most of human history, despite every myth about mankind ruling the food chain, we were built and wired far closer to the rabbit than the owl. The predators that shaped that wiring are mostly gone now. Zoos, documentaries, occasional news stories about a mountain lion sighting 3 states away. But the wiring itself never got the memo. It didn't disappear. It just went looking for something new to be afraid of. Somewhere around age 4, most children develop a very specific new talent, imagining exactly what might be hiding in the closet. It's not a coincidence, and it's not bad parenting. Fear of the dark in children reliably peaks between roughly ages 4 and 6, right as their cognitive development unlocks the ability to imagine things they can't see. Monsters, intruders, shapes and shadows that aren't actually there. Some developmental psychologists argue this window lines up almost too neatly with what would have been a critical vigilance period in ancestral environments. Back when a child wandering off from the group at dusk was a genuine physical risk. The imagination didn't appear by accident. It appeared right when it would have kept a small, defenseless hominin child close to the fire. That's the ancient system working exactly as designed. Predictable darkness, predictable risk. A fear precisely calibrated to the danger it was built for. Here's where it gets interesting. Modern humans didn't just remove the predators, we broke the light itself. Sleep researcher Charles Chisler's work on circadian rhythms shows that exposure to artificial light at night, especially the blue wavelengths pouring out of phones and screens, suppresses melatonin production and confuses the brain's internal clock about whether it's actually nighttime at all. Your body is trying to run an ancient day-night threat assessment using inputs that no longer make sense. A bedroom lit by a phone screen at 1 a.m. registers as neither safe darkness nor honest daylight. It's neurological static. So here's the strange, uncomfortable position modern humans are stuck in. We are safer from actual nighttime predators than any generation in human history. And at the exact same time, our brains are more confused about what darkness even means than any generation before us. Ancient darkness was consistent. It came with real risk, sure, but the risk was legible. You knew what you were afraid of, and the fear had an edge, a shape, a set of teeth. Modern darkness isn't like that anymore. It's interrupted by screens, scrambled by artificial light, disconnected from anything you could actually point to and name. The fear is still there, the chemical alarm still fires, but increasingly it fires with nothing real on the other end of it, which means the story stops being about leopards, or caves, or ancient survival at all. It starts being about something a lot closer to home, something the viewer has almost certainly felt themselves wide awake at 2 a.m. for reasons that never quite add up. Humans built an entire civilization to make sure we'd never have to sit in real darkness again. Streetlights, nightlights, phones that never fully power down, televisions left on in empty rooms just for the sound, just for the glow. 24-hour everything, in every direction, so that true darkness, the kind your ancestors lived inside every single night, barely exists anymore in most modern lives. And instead of fixing the fear, we just gave it a new job. That same hyper-vigilant brain that once scanned tall grass for movement now scans an inbox at 2 a.m. It doesn't know the difference between a predator in the dark and an unread message from your boss. It fires the same alarm for both. Racing heart, tight chest, that specific wired-awake feeling that has nothing to do with actual danger and everything to do with a threat detection system that's been running non-stop all day with no real predators left to catch. This is where burnout actually lives, not in a lack of discipline, not in weakness. In a nervous system built for occasional sharp bursts of danger, now running on a low, constant hum of notifications, deadlines, and unresolved attention. All day, every day, with the volume never fully turned down. Most people get this completely wrong. They think the goal is to fix their fear of the dark, to just relax, stop being paranoid, grow out of it. But that's aiming at the wrong target entirely. The fear was never really about darkness itself. It was always about not knowing what's out there. Ancient humans solved that with fire, with groups, with walls. Modern life just replaced the unknown predator with 1,000 smaller, vaguer uncertainties, and left the exact same alarm system running to handle all of them. You're not broken for lying awake at night, mind racing over nothing you can name. You're running the oldest software humans have. It just never got an update for a world with no leopards left in it. Zoom out for a second, because this whole story, the caves, the skulls, the fire, the sleepless nights, has been building toward one final uncomfortable idea. Let's walk back through what actually happened here. Long before humans were apex anything, we were prey. Vulnerable, slow-eyed, badly outmatched after sundown by predators built specifically to thrive in the dark we could barely see through. That's not speculation, it's written directly into the bones, in puncture wounds spaced exactly like leopard teeth, in skulls dragged into caves thousands of centuries ago. Out of that vulnerability came something useful. Fear, sharpened into an early warning system, wired straight into the amygdala, keeping the anxious ones alive long enough to pass that anxiety forward. Fire gave humans the first real tool to push back against the dark, not by deleting the fear, but by managing it. And then modern life arrived, replaced the predators with streetlights and screens, and left the alarm system running anyway, just aimed at inboxes, silence, and uncertainty instead of teeth. So the fear was never a flaw. It was never something to be embarrassed about, or something to white-knuckle your way past. It's inheritance. A message passed down from every ancestor who felt that same tightening in their chest at dusk and lived to tell about it. Which leaves one last question worth asking. Not why we're afraid of the dark. What that fear actually proves. Every species that ever stopped fearing the right things is gone now, extinct. Edited out by something faster, sharper, or better equipped for the night. Humans aren't here because we conquered that fear. We're here because we never did. So tonight, when you reach over and flip on a light for no real reason, no threat, no sound, nothing you could name, understand what that motion actually is. It's not paranoia. It's not weakness. It's a hand reaching across 300,000 years, meeting the hand of an ancestor who did the exact same thing, for the exact same reason, in the same kind of dark, and lived. That's not a flaw passed down to you. That's proof.